Hi everyone, and welcome to this education session in which I will share tips, tools, and professional stories drawn from my global experience to help foreign entrepreneurs prepare to enter the US market. Some of these tips will also be applicable to other international markets. My name is Sonnen. I'm a French native, adopted Australian turned New Yorker. Working in international markets is in my DNA. Entrepreneurship and innovation have driven my career from early stages to where I am today. I co-founded one of the first full-service digital agencies in Europe. Working with accounts such as Accor Hotels and Kellogg's, my business partners and I turned our vision into a profitable business within 3 years. I then moved to Australia in search of the ideal lifestyle. Whilst continuing to sharpen my experience, I joined Leo Burnett and Zenith Optimedia, part of the Publicis Group, and later Interpublic to lead the digital strategy for major brands such as CD, 20th Century Fox, Nestle, Unilever, and Microsoft. I was one of the first 5 employees chosen to comprise Twitter's pre-IPO launch team in Australia. In charge of building relationships with Fortune 500 companies, I proactively and successfully launched Twitter's video sponsorship product in partnership with L'Oréal. This courageous move propelled me to head of international development based in New York. I negotiated multiple global partnerships, bringing Viacom and Coca-Cola together, for instance, orchestrated the first live streaming program outside of the US, expanded the NBA and NFL sponsorship to emerging markets, and became a pillar of the team that expanded video monetization to $100 million a year and ignited Twitter's revenue growth. Being a change agent, I'm inspired by pushing the tech community to its next revolution, which I believe to be spatial computing. That's why I joined NextVR as VP of Marketing and Brand Partnerships. What best describes my role there is the keynote I delivered at Cannes Lions titled, "The Rectangle on the Wall is no longer good enough." This is what I advocate every day to consumers, brands, technology platforms, and content creators. In summary, I scale emerging technologies globally. Let's look at the topics that I'll cover in this session, starting with touching on tips to turn your differences into assets, the basics tools that will set you up for success, and how to adapt your materials. Let's look at how to turn your differences into assets. Your native language and culture, as well as your domestic experience, are ways to connect and shine. The most obvious one is your language. Language is one of the first and the main difference that people will notice about you as a foreign entrepreneur. The great thing about your accent is that when you start talking, you already have people's attention. People need to pay extra attention to understand you. This can actually be a very powerful asset. Now, in perspective, grammatical errors and pronunciation are not a potential assets if used wrongly. They could be liabilities and make you seem unprofessional. There are a few things that are worth investing in when you approach international and particularly the US market. Mastering English grammar and pronunciation in your field of activity, as well as traveling to the US, are definitely on that list. Get trained, take English courses if you have access to that, or use phonetic tools online such as Google Translate. Ask some friends, rehearse your introduction and your pitch until a native English speaker tells you that it's perfect. In terms of culture, connecting with American is very different from European countries. Rules of engagement are different, interests are different, overall cultural awareness is very important. Here are some very entry points. Sports is a great way to connect with American counterparts. The most popular ones in the US are the NFL, National Football League, MLB, Major League Baseball, and the NBA, National Basketball Association. Other international sports like soccer or cricket are not really on the map. Sports, I feel, are very important for American cultures, and do your research. If you don't know a topic that well, then stay clear and try and connect in other ways. Where you went to college is also a very important networking tool. If you've studied in the US, if you've studied in a university that has an affiliation with the US university, definitely put that forward. Do some research to connect with your interlocutors at a cultural level. Find out things that might make you easier ways to connect with them, and if relevant, ask where they're from in terms of their local state, if they've traveled to your home country, if they speak your language. If relevant, offer some local tips to your own country. That might be a great way to connect with people. And then finally, in terms of your professional experience, you might have the strongest track record with a very important domestic firm. It will not be recognized by Americans if that company doesn't have a footprint in the US. So always remember to add some context. For example, I worked for company X and Y, leader in such and such field, listed in the Paris Stock Exchange around under blah, blah, blah. For example, if there's a branch, if you worked for a US branch or a global company, frame it in such a way. And also remember to adjust your title to a level that does make sense for the American industry. In a nutshell, Americanize your profile and your material to make it easier for your counterparts and the people you're meeting with to understand where you're coming from. Here's an example from my experience, great illustration to show how accents can be powerful. This was during a panel that I led with the head of marketing at L'Oreal. As you can see, people were really enthused by the presentation and how we were presenting it. There is definitely going to be a before and an after you come to the US. It might be for a week, for a month, depending on your situation. One thing is absolutely certain is that you must make the trip. Before the trip, constantly build your reputation. Your reputation is borderless and it will help you when you seek opportunities in foreign markets. Activate your contacts. You might be surprised how close you are from potential business partners or investors that are located in the US market or international markets. Know the players. That piece of advice was given to me by a very successful American female entrepreneur. Do your research, know who you're meeting with, and know who the players are in your industry. There are so many tools from LinkedIn to Wikipedia online that are making it very easy for you to access that type of resource. Set SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Your goals might be for a specific trip, for a specific meeting, for a specific trade show, a demo day. Know what you're expecting to get out of such opportunities so that you can follow up accordingly on these. And then finally, make the trip. Nothing will have as much impact as you spending some time with your contacts in the US. This is absolutely something that you have to do and you can't work around that. After you make the trip, follow up precisely and specifically with the contact you established. Even the meetings that were not really that great, something might come out of it. And then finally, be ready to do it all over again. If you have a lead, be ready to jump back on the plane and start doing that rounds of meeting again, because something again might turn up that you didn't expect, and you might have to jump back on the plane at very short notice to continue on these meetings. Here is an example of the impact of making the trip. When I was working at Twitter in Australia, it really is not until I took myself to New York for a week that I was able to connect with the right executives who would become my biggest advocates for my transfer and expansion to a global role. There is no other way. Make the trip to the US and it will really change the opportunities that will open up for you. Adapt your material. This is super important. What's your 2-minute story? At the beginning of this education tutorial, I told you my 2-minute stories. It's a mix of your most relevant experience and strength, not just skills, but really your strength. You've heard my 2-minute stories during the intro, and you heard global experience, entrepreneur, innovation, courageous, worked with renowned brands. This is what's going to make people want to hear more about you and your ideas. This is really important. Your storyline and product demos, again, put some context to the actual American or international market that you're presenting. Context around the metrics to make sure that what you're presenting can translate in terms of the scale of where US professionals are working. Translate your pricing into US dollars, again, to make it easier for the people you're meeting with to understand the context. Personalize them to the person you're presenting, knowing the research that you've done previously. And then finally, in terms of your presentation, you're going to present remotely. That's unavoidable. So make your presentation material work as hard as possible to create an impact for you. Here is an example of what I've done in the past that really created that type of impact in terms of presenting remotely. this is a puppy story more than a personal story. So if I write cute puppy on the screen, you'll understand what these words mean. But if I show you a video of these really, really cute puppies just for you to enjoy, which one are you going to remember the most? The words or looking at these puppies doing incredibly cute stuff in front of you? When I was at Twitter, I needed to communicate my results and my projects to high-level executives that were distributed around the world, from New York City, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, London, or Singapore. Emails get lost, timing is tricky with time zones, so I transformed a simple slide deck into a narrated video, exactly like what you're experiencing today, slides and myself talking to the story. You can do something like that very easily. Take 5 slides, 1 minute, 2 minutes max, narrated by you with your accent and your personality. It's very easy to do. You've got the instructions here on the screen. If you're using Keynote, simply go into play, record slideshow, and then save as a movie. You can then upload it as a private link onto YouTube and share it only with the people that you want them to see that video. This is really impactful and was showcased as an example of the most impactful communication across global companies. If you have some question, feel free to comment on this post or on Twitter at Sonnen. I'm confident that these tips and tools will be helpful for you to expand your business in the US and international market.